Welcome, everyone. My name's Lynn Schusler-Williams. I'm a speaker, coach, and author out of Louisville, Kentucky. It's my great pleasure to be your host for the Success Partners International Wednesday training call. It is a call that we start with our signature message for Success Partners, as we do all our team calls, to remind us that we have a shared mission, and each and every person on this call can say, I am part of a growing team of entrepreneurs with a shared mission of connecting 2 million families and small businesses with LegalShield's network of law firms and world-class identity theft services. What we do matters, and we're looking for help. And with that, I have the great pleasure of turning the call over to the leader of Success Partners, a friend and mentor and Millionaire Club member, Mr. John Drennan. Sir, the call is yours. Please mute your lines, everyone.
And Lynn, I'm trusting you'll mute the folks that don't know to mute, and I know you're great at that. What a great job you did setting this up. Thanks so much, John Drennan. I am excitedly here in Louisville, Kentucky, and this is our Wednesday training, and we always like to start by talking with brand new associates, which we have joining every single week, or maybe you're not new this week, but still fairly new. So first of all, welcome you. What a great decision you've made. You know, our company in 2011 was acquired for $651 million, and then last year about this time acquired again for over $1 billion. That is the growth trajectory that you're part of. It's just incredible as we go to 2 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion in value. So with that, part one of the training is always about, again, the brand new person. So a little bit different tonight. First thing, I just want to give a couple coaching points if you're brand new. Here's what you want to do. Go to begintheascent.com, begintheascent.com. Ascent is A-S, like as, C-E-N-T, like scent, ascent, begintheascent.com. That is Timur Halligan's Team Ascent website, and click on Getting Started. And it's got the whole menu there for what to do. But there are 3 things I want to emphasize when you're brand new. Number 1, call the law firm. I don't work with people until they've called the law firm. That's how important that is. Number 2, make a list of at least 30 people that you want to invite to just learn about LegalShield, and make that list without prejudging. And number 3, begin inviting those people and work with your support team in terms of where you're going to invite them to and what. So those are the 3 things you definitely want to do when you're brand new. Tonight, I want to kind of interview and go out to 2 individuals who came on board at different times. They happen to be in the same team structure. The 2 individuals are Lee Perry, who is a senior manager in rank, a regional manager appointed by the MVP of the state of Indiana, and somebody who's really showing she's a market maker, putting her market of Evansville, Indiana on the map. And I also want to go out to Mr. Steve Kyer, who's actually part of Lee's organization. Steve's wife, Marcia, got started in the business about a year ago, and then Steve joined in, and for the last 6 to 7 months, they've been very active. They're closing in on director. They've got great momentum in St. Louis. And I want to go out to each of you, first of all, just very briefly so people can kind of know who you are. Lee, let me start with you. Go ahead and just introduce yourself and your background.
Lee Perry, Evansville, Indiana. My background is a fund development consultant. It's a varied background, but that's the most recent thing that I've done.
Okay, thanks, Lee. And I know you've done a lot of things. I love how you enunciate fund, because we all know Lee has fun, but fund, F-U-N-D, helping with nonprofits. It's fundraising. I love it. And then Steve Kyer, are you there? Go ahead, quickly introduce yourself, please.
Hey, Coach, always great to see you and this whole great team. My name is Steve Kyer. I work the business along with my wife, Marcia Kyer. However, our background is in home health, and Marcia's been doing that for about 25 years. I've been doing that for about 14 years. So we enjoy doing this, but we're so thankful to be a part of LegalShield and this great, awesome team. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you. I love the yellow wall and the picture in the background. And with that, I want to ask you both, and Lee, I'll start with you. I want to ask you this question. As you think back, now that you're a senior director, you're a regional manager, you're doing the deal. But think back when you were brand new. What would you say to the people who are new are one or two of the most important things for them in getting their business started?
I'd have a do and a don't. The don't is you don't have to have a PhD in the product. The do is start inviting immediately while you're excited, while you're enthusiastic, and you say don't prejudge, and that means don't overthink it. I think too many of us way overthink it. So that would be the one do and the one don't, John.
Fabulous. And by the way, speaking of overthinking, I had not offered these questions in advance. You're getting the raw, immediate response, and there was no time to overthink that. So let's hear what Lee just said. Number one, you don't need a PhD. She's saying you don't need to read the manual before you use the iPhone or start the car or use the lawnmower. You might need to read one or two points, but you don't need to know everything. Here's why. You're relying on your team. Secondly, she said begin inviting. And, if you go back to the three things I said, use the membership, make your list, and start inviting. So spot on, Lee. That's wisdom, folks. And if you're new, take this. If they say something and I think, gee, that's really not the advice I would give, I'll let you know. But she nailed it. So, Steve, I know you and your wife are, you're rocking in St. Louis on your way to director. Think back to when you joined in with Marcia. And what would you advise in getting started?
I would advise to listen to your leadership. Coach, we're thankful for you and Lee Perry and Lynn Schuster-Williams. Listen to your leadership, because you guys have not steered us wrong. You very specifically shared with us to do PBRs and luncheons. We followed that directive, got with Lee Perry, and Lynn. Of course, they said, get with networking opportunities. We've done that, and it works. So I say definitely listen to, we're so fortunate to have great leadership here in yourself, just a great team, and that's what it takes. So I appreciate the question, Coach.
I appreciate the answer. And let me translate, listen to the leadership really means follow what the leadership says, which is what the Kyers have done. And, our coaching to them was PBRs and luncheons, but depending on your scenario, we might say to you, focus on prospect and the briefing. But see, the coaching that we gave Steve and Marcia had to do with the environment they're in, the city they're in, the events that are going on, and their busy schedules. They work full-time jobs. So I might advise someone different working a full-time job than someone who's maybe doesn't have a job. They're very part-time. They're 1099. And depending on the market they're in, and do they have luncheons? Do they have briefings? And so on. So I love the answers. So I'm going to ask both of you one more question. If you could go back in time, and this is something we all think about, I played college basketball, and I think back, if I knew in high school what I knew in college as a basketball player. So if we could go back in time, knowing what you know now, but starting your business over, Lee, what would you do differently?
Oh, I can answer that easily. I'd be coachable.
That's what Steve said, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing that I would do is be coachable. And I would have hit the ground running. I wouldn't have tried to figure everything out on the front end.
And so she said, you don't need to read the manual and have the PhD. But so Lee, explain to everyone the difference between being teachable and coachable.
Well, I thought I was both, Coach. I thought I was teachable and coachable. I didn't realize I wasn't until you pointed that out. And that is, teachable is you love to learn. You love to understand how it works, what the processes are, what the information is, and get the ideas. Coachable means that when someone who's a Millionaire Club member who has a six-figure ring says, this is what you need to do, you do it. You don't ask, when coach says jump, you don't ask how high, you just go on and jump until you get it right. So that's coachable. And I'm coachable now. I wasn't then.
Yeah, and thanks so much for that. So, listening here tonight is teachable. You're hearing things and learning things. Coachable is applying tomorrow, something you got tonight. So thanks so much, Lee. And by the way, when I got started, I wasn't coachable. I was arrogant. I thought I can do this. I can blow by you being my upline. I didn't know what I didn't know. But over time, you go from not knowing what you don't know to knowing you don't know, to then knowing you know, to then just you just know. You're unconsciously competent. So Steve Kyer, think back to when you got started. If you could wind the clock back and do it over, what would you do differently?
Coach, I would not procrastinate. And as you well know, Marcia got into the business side of this business several months before I did. So I procrastinated. I kind of sat back and watched, and she hit the ground running, right? And if I didn't catch up, I would have said, wow. So I, for sure, bar none, would not procrastinate. If you see something that's great, and I just agree with Lynn, you have a $1 million, a Millionaire Club member, a six-figure ring earner that's right there, and else this is before you. Get on it, and so definitely wouldn't procrastinate.
Yeah, and so I'm coming back to that in a minute, but you've got the mentors, John and Darcy Hoffman, myself, Timur Halligan, Jim Harkma, all six-figure rings, Millionaire Club. So. But here's a little commercial. Steve, what was it last summer that really kind of launched you, took you out of the watching into the action mode?
Wow, and I see I actually also see Miranda Chisholm's on here too. I know the same for her, but it's definitely the Summer Blast. For sure, bar none. And you're right, Coach. I would advertise that 10 times over again. We already have our tickets. We already have things. And you've taught us, and I'm so thankful. But a part of that 3 legs of success is success begins with showing up. And I tell you, I am so thankful I showed up, and we will not stop that. So really appreciate it. So for sure, the Summer Blast, unequivocally, without a doubt.
Yeah, and team, this year's Summer Blast, we're going to a whole new level. You're going to be hearing more and more about that. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Lee. We're going to go on to part 2 of the training. And Steve just talked about the 3 legs of success. So kind of put that in your notes or remember that when we get to that. So at this point, I'm going to share my screen and pull up a PowerPoint. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Lee. And let me get my PowerPoint loaded here. Okay. So tonight, I'm going to go through 10 questions. These are questions for you to really contemplate. We don't have time to spend a lot of time on any of the 10, but you'll have time to kind of jot down the question and have this to process. And you'll also have the ability to think about this as it relates to people you work with. So this is 10 questions, and let's get started. And so these are questions to ask of ourselves, and then to ask, these are the kinds of questions you would ask, not necessarily in a game plan, but with an associate that you're helping to mentor. So first, why are you a LegalShield associate? And while we constantly hear this idea of what's our why, we really need to know it. And why are we doing this business? Because it's the why that fuels what we do. It's the why that allows us to deal with the disappointments. We always say discipline our disappointments. The way we do that is by having a compelling why that's bigger than someone quitting or saying no or saying they'll join and they don't, or the home office doesn't get it right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can be distractions and frustrating. But if you got a strong why, you knock those away like they're nothing. And so number one question, why are you an associate? And that should be a compelling answer. And maybe it's not all that compelling now, but you can grow that answer, because LegalShield can allow us to achieve in the way of financially and helping others and gaining time freedom and meeting new people and being mentored in ways that like the corporate world could never do. So that's question one. Let's go to question two. What's your vision for your business? So if you're taking notes, I hope you write down, what's my vision? And can you answer that? In other words, if you project down the road, what's your business look like? Is it strong in your state or market? Is it nationwide? Is it North America? Do you see eventually being in Europe? Do you see yourself always having a strong part-time income, a full-time income? Are you six figures? Are you living life on your terms? What's your vision? And the fact is, your vision is your vision. I don't ever want to attempt to put my vision on you, but I really want to know what's your vision for you. Because your vision might just be, and not just, let me get rid of that word. Your vision might be that you want to be an advocate for people who otherwise wouldn't have justice. Your vision might be you want to bring an opportunity to people. Your vision might be paying off your parents' mortgage. You know, whatever that is for you, what is it? That's question number two. By the way, if I was sitting down with you one-on-one coaching you, these are questions I would want the answers to. Number three, what is your membership story? You know, I said earlier on this Zoom that I don't work with people until they've called the law firm. Well, then I ask them to share their story. And then I coach them on how to share a membership story that we call a testimony. There's really four parts to it. It always starts with name, city, and background, because you want to be able to share your story on a call, at a PBR, at a briefing. So name, city, background. But then the next three parts, what happened? So I got a ticket. Somebody said I owed them money. I got a letter from the IRS. My neighbor's tree fell on my fence. You know, what happened? Secondly, what'd the law firm do? They gave me advice. They wrote a letter. They went to court. They did my will. They responded. Then thirdly, what was the outcome? The ticket got dropped. I got my will done. I found out I wasn't at fault. That's your story. Name, city, background. Here's what happened. Here's what the lawyer did. Here was the outcome. Now, what's your associate story? Same thing. Name, city, background. Then three parts to it. Why did I get started? Hey, I got started because I wanted to go on a new career path. I got started to free up my spouse from his or her job. I got started because I wanted another income stream. I got started because identity theft happened to me and I wanted to be there for others. I got started because I eventually want to do this full time. So why'd you start? Number two, what's the result you've had? Hey, I've been getting a bonus for 12 months in a row. Hey, my best month was $1,200. Hey, I've, helped 6 people last month. Whatever story around your business that you can share as call it a success story. And then thirdly, what's the future hold? So you might say, hey, I got started because I wanted to create another income stream that could lead to something more full-time. My best month has been $2,600 a month. And I see now the future, I'm going to eventually be able to work this business full-time from anywhere, and it will be my retirement. So those are examples. So you have to be able to articulate, to share your stories. That's question number 3. Number 4, do you have a written list? And if I was with you, coaching you, I would say, show it to me. A written list. When people say, no, I don't have it written down, but here it's in my phone or it's in my computer, it doesn't count. You need the names to go from your head, your phone, your computer, your Facebook onto paper. And so show me your list. For the brand new people on here tonight, your initial list should be at least 30 names. For the veterans who are working this business with the desire to really create something, you've got to have at least 100 names. Eventually, over time, you'll have hundreds. And if you watch the video I did on making a list, and if you do what's on there, you're guaranteed at least 400 names, more like 700. 700 to 800 is normal. So do you have a written list? And I would say show it to me. That's question 4. Question 5, do you have a calendar or a planner? So for example, I've got a calendar you can't see here in front of me on my desk. I've also got a planner here with a calendar for, that's got the every month. And so I like written calendars and planners. Some of you use electronics, that's okay. But do you have something to put your meetings, your events, you're showing up, the places you need to be? So number 1, you're organized, but number 2, you got activity going on and you're showing up. So do you have a calendar or planner? And again, if I was coaching you, I'd say show it to me. And if it's full of a bunch of blanks and you're saying, gee, I need to make more money, I'd say, well, you got way too many days that are blank. It's very simple. So that's question 5. Question 6, do you know how to do a 3-way call? Answer that in your own head right now. Yes or no? And let me add a word in there. Do you know how to do a 3-way call effectively? I don't mean the mechanics of it with your phone. I mean, do you know how to be effective in a 3-way call? And I would say demonstrate that to me. And there's a couple ways I could do that. We could role play. I could say, okay, you pretend you're bringing me on and introducing me to your prospect. Let's role play that. And then I could say, okay, let's pretend this time I'm calling you and asking you to be the expert with my prospect. Let's role play that. And demonstrate to me that you know how to do this. And when you are the expert on a call, there's 4 things you do. Some other night we'll go into that in detail, but here are the 4 real quick. You get rapport with that prospect that you've been asked to talk with. Then you ask some questions like, hey, I understand you looked at a video, or hey, I understand you went to a luncheon. Then you share your story. Well, let me tell you, when I first saw this, I was a little skeptical, but the more I learned, the less skeptical I became. I became a member, actually got my will done right away, called the law firm on some other things. I realized I would never be without this service. And then it made it easy to share it. And ever since, I've had more money coming into my household. So you share a story. Then you move that person to the next step, whether it's inviting them out to a briefing, inviting them to a lunch, ask them, are they ready to get started? So those are the skills of the 3 ways. So do you know how to do that? That's question 6. Question 7, can you do a 7 to 8 minute membership presentation? And I would say demonstrate that to me. Again, role play. So whether you use the brochure, you use your app on your phone, you use the, and I'm totally drawing a blank on the Shield Nation sheet that I use, but there's different tools you can use to demonstrate the membership, a flip book, etc. So that's question 7. And hey, if you're brand new, we do not expect you to be able to do a 7 or 8 minute membership presentation because you're not the one doing the talking when you're new. Somebody else is. But if you've been here 6 months or a year, you should be able to sit down and do the 7 or 8 minutes. And by the way, the document I couldn't think of, it's called the consumer folder through Shield Nation. That's what I use when I'm sitting down one-on-one to just show the membership. Okay, that's question 7. We got 3 more. Question 8, what's your score for the past 90 days for the 3 legs of success? Remember Steve Kyer talking about the 3 legs of success, and the first one is showing up. And because he was coachable, because he took that to heart, he went to the Summer Blast with his wife Marcia, and their business has taken off ever since. And that's going to happen for those of you who attend Dallas next month, our convention, and then those who come to our summer blast at the end of June in Indiana. So here are the 3 legs of success. Number 1, show up. Number 2, activity. Number 3, PD. Most of you know that stands for personal development. Now, next to each of those, it says quantity and quality. So again, if you're taking notes, the question is score yourself. Score yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. First on quantity. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, showing up quantity, what's that look like? You look at the last 90 days and say, okay, have I been on the team calls? Well, obviously you're here tonight, so that scores high for you. Have I been to the weekly briefing? Have I been to the monthly Super Saturday? Am I registered for Dallas? If you can say yes to those, you're showing up. Give yourself a 10. Now the quality, do I show up on time? Do I come prepared? Am I dressed right? Do I come with a good attitude? You know, now that's the quality. If you got high quantity and low quality, that's no good. If you got low quantity and high quality, that's better, but it's still not enough. You need both. Same thing with activity. Now, some of you might ask, well, what's the activity? Here it is. Making a list and adding to it. Inviting. Following up, primarily with 3-way calls. And then onboarding that new person that comes on board. Are you that new member, are you setting them up in prospect for the retention campaign? A new associate, are you doing a game plan? Are you doing 3-way welcome calls? Things like that. So what's your activity? Again, quantity, but also quality. You know, if you're inviting people, but the quality's poor, you always need the quality number to be high, because if the quality's low, you got to kind of stop doing the business until you can adjust your quality and get that up higher. And then finally, personal development. Quantity is simply, are you reading a good book every day? I just finished a book tonight. It's my 3rd book for the year. I'll have my 4th book done by the end of this week. And so, that's just reading 10 or more pages a day. Are you watching good stuff on YouTube? Are you hanging out with the right people, et cetera? And again, the quality. I don't try and watch a movie while I'm reading a book. That makes no sense. So the quality matters. So that's question 8. That took a little more time because that was pretty involved. Question 9, what book are you reading? And I believe with the 50 or so people on this training, probably every one of you have an answer to that. But if you go out to the general population and you ask, hey, what book are you reading? Most people say, well, I'm not. They're reading a tabloid, a magazine, a romance novel. Nothing wrong with those things, but we got to be feeding ourselves. So that's question 9. What book are you reading? And then question 10, share that with your workout partner. Who's your workout partner? Now that question assumes you've got one. It doesn't say, do you have a workout partner? But many of you don't. So you want to go to work on having a workout partner. Years ago, somebody asked me, how do I find a workout partner? And my answer was, become one. In other words, you look to be a workout partner with somebody. And who's one of your mentors? And I say one of, because you can have several mentors. I've had many, many mentors over time in this business, but who's one of them? Can you answer that? Now, I've gone through 10 questions. If you can answer every one of these, you can answer everyone, but depending on your answers, it's going to say so much to me about where you're at in the business. And if you do this for yourself, it's going to tell you so much you need to know about where you're at in the business. And if you do it with one of your associates, it's going to tell you so much about where they're at. So with that, I am going to stop sharing the screen. I know we're at the 10 o'clock mark, but I do want to, I've covered a lot of ground, and I want to give a chance for people who are on, if you want to unmute yourself and ask about any of those 10 questions specifically. Let's go ahead and do that for a few minutes, and then we'll wrap it up.
This is John, and I want to thank you for the input. It's very pointed and it's challenging, and it should help me clarify things in my own practice and business. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome, John. And it definitely will if you give attention to those questions. So thanks for your input. Who else? Question or comment?
Coach
Hi,
Drennan,
Coach. This is Dawn from Martin, Tennessee. What suggestion would you have in a rural market, to reach out in a rural market?
So when you say rural, are you in a small town, village, or not even that?
A small town, very small. Yes, sir.
And then what's your nearest city, Dwan?
It is about an hour away.
And what city?
Jackson, Tennessee. It's a metropolitan area, and Memphis is about 3 hours away. Nashville is about 3 hours away.
Okay, so to answer your question, first of all, I would really get to know all the people in town with the goal of everybody in this town is going to know about this. Secondly, I would use the heck out of prospect with people who are not local to you. And you need to meet people outside of your small town. You need to use prospect, and you need to use our calendar for inviting people, because you know people in other towns, whether it's in Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Colorado, Florida. And I think my strongest advice is do not allow yourself to make where you live or your conditions ever be an excuse, because there's people out there who have demonstrated, whether they're in a small town or they're in a market where nothing's going on, or they don't have family support, or they don't feel like they know anybody. There's people who have overcome literally every shortcoming. Dwan, is that helpful, or do you want to ask a follow-up?
No, absolutely. Thank you, Coach Drennan. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Anyone else? I think I heard Steve or Marcia.
Coach, you did, and this is exactly what we're talking about, and about the leadership and the mentorship that we're getting. I know that you have taught this and given us, I won't say bits and pieces, but given us well, I'm going to, just in measure, but this is the first time I actually have seen this, and I'm looking at this whole 10-question scenario in full. This is just awesome. This is just another business plan, another game plan that we can implement that will ensure our success. So I really appreciate it, Coach. And again, that's what I said about that excellent mentorship that you're providing.
Thank you for that, Steve. And I want to make a point about that. I attended Fast Start training, the new one, this past Sunday. And in doing that, I reflected back. The very first Fast Start training I ever attended was in October of 1998, first one. And at the time I attended that, I was a pretty skilled trainer because of what I had done prior to that. So now for 20 and a half years, I've attended countless trainings and done countless trainings. And I can see where people are at and how they're doing from miles away. I can literally ask a few questions and from that determine where somebody's at in their business. And these questions right here are key. And I'll be doing a Super Saturday in New England in March, mid-March, where I'll be challenging the room with these questions right there. And they're going to get wowed. And I'm saying that not to boast. I'm saying that because after 20 and a half years of attending thousands of events, it's unconsciously competent for someone, not just me, but anybody that's done that. And so I'm saying this for a reason. You can trust what you're hearing. So thanks for your comment, Steve. Dolores, do you have a comment? Angelique, do you have a comment? Your names are popping up here. You're unmuted.
Oh, how do I do the mute?
Well, you mute your microphone there on your Zoom. While she's doing that, anybody else have a comment?
Hey, John, it's Timmer Halligan here, and just wanted to come on. I was actually on the Amelia's call tonight, and I was talking about many of the same things that you talked about as I caught the tail end of this, because, you know, and I want people to realize what Mr. Drennan just said. For 20 plus years, attending one Super Saturday a month, I can promise you that, probably many times two. Being at 20 plus international conventions in our business, probably more, because we've got a couple that have gone on that have been specialty kind of things. Attended thousands of briefings. I mean, 52 a year for decades of briefings. And when you think about that, it's easy to think that you're on the same, it's easy for me to think I'm on the same page, but I'm not, because nothing can replace experience in an industry specifically. What's great is many of these things you could take them into any business that you have or any business that you run, but specifically to this business, it's all about just taking what others have done before us, guys, and just trust the system. When they say be in Dallas, I mean, listen, when I was just on that Amelia call just now and they said, you know, what do you say about Dallas? I said, I don't know why you need to be in Dallas, but you got to be in Dallas. And where did I learn that? I learned that from Mr. Drennan and the things that he says. And guess what? Just like I learned skills on the tennis court from coaches that have come before me, who've done it longer than me, and who have experienced better results than me, I may be great at what I do, but they could make me greater. And so that's what I think is so significant about this training tonight. It's about getting better and getting a little more in depth with where you want to go and ask some of the real questions. So back to you, sir.
Well, thanks so much. And folks and gentlemen, you just heard from 15 years or so in the business, $150,000 ring. I know you just were asked to speak and do a Super Saturday, Timmer, in Kansas. You've done those all over North America in the last couple of years, you know, well known. Yet Timmer understands what Lee was talking about, being coachable. And so, and by the way, when you said you just came off the Amelia's call, think about that. The Amelia team asked Timmer Halligan to come on and share nuggets, but then he said he was sharing the same things. Well, that's a clue. I'm glad, Timmer, you didn't say that. I talked about things totally different from what you talked about, because the system is the system. I appreciate you. Anybody else have comments or questions? I know we're going over a 30-minute time, but again, we're in some Q&A here. If this can be helpful, we want to stay on. Anyone else?
John, it's Brenda, Louisville, Kentucky, and being a strong visual, I mean, I love the Zooms. I so connect with it. Like Steve said, a business plan for me, this is a roadmap, but this is so allows me to internally and externally look at my business. So I thank you. It was just beyond incredible. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brenda, thank you. And by the way, if any of you, maybe some of the questions like hit you hard, it's like, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not being called out on that. We've all been there. So don't, if anyone's feeling a little bit like, gosh, I feel bad after hearing these questions. No, just adjust. That's the beauty of this business. You know, there's no failure here. Quitting is failure, but beyond that, there's no failure. There's just getting better, adjusting, making new commitments, new objectives, and just keep moving forward. You don't get fired here. They don't stop paying you. LegalShield's not going to stop paying you your overrides because you couldn't answer questions 3 and 7. So, Brenda, I appreciate your comments. Who else has a comment or a question? Going once? Twice? Well, with that, we'll go ahead and say goodnight. A reminder, tomorrow morning is our stretch call. Lynette McKinley, regional manager out of East Texas, is going to lead that. It's going to be a great call, 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow on our team line. And if you've not been to our team calendar, LegalShieldCalendar.com/success partners. And that's where you're going to get information on not just our calls and Zooms, but the summer blast. So with that, Thanks again, Lynn, for hosting tonight. Everyone have a great rest of your night. Bye for now.
Thanks, Coach Drennan.
Bye, everyone.